Excellencies, dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who is with us on WebEx and to who is now watching this video. We have the pleasure to welcome you today for an executive briefing on the second segment of the fourth meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which will take place in less than 3 weeks in Indonesia. We will also hear about some preparatory meetings starting already next week. In the past months, the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention on Mercury and its stakeholders have been very active online in preparations of their conference of the parties and other subsidiary and technical bodies, with the so-called Minamata online series, leading to the first segment of the conference last year, and this second segment in a few weeks. We are also organizing this briefing online as we are, of course, connecting with the colleagues who are based in Indonesia, but also we want to keep everybody safe and make sure that everybody will be in good health to be able to join Jakarta in a few days. We are honored to have with us today His Excellency Ambassador Fabrian Rudyard, the permanent representative of the Republic of Indonesia to the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and other international organizations in Geneva, and other colleagues from Indonesia joining us virtually to represent the host country. We will be introducing them as we give them the floor. At this executive briefing, the Minamata Convention Secretariat and the representatives from the host country, Indonesia, will present the items on the agenda and substantive matters to be considered at the upcoming segment, and will also provide an overview of logistical preparations. Before we start discussing in depth the preparations for this important conference, let me remind you that the documents presented, the summary, as well as a video of this briefing will be made available on the webpage of the event, and my colleagues have been sharing the link in the chat. Throughout the event, you can raise your questions by using the Q&A box. We will answer these in the question and answer session. We are now proceeding with the agenda of this event, and for the welcoming remarks, it is our pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Fabrian Rudyard, as I mentioned earlier, the permanent representative of the Republic of Indonesia to the United Nations in Geneva. Excellency, over to you.
Thank you, Alice. Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention, Ms. Monica Stankiewicz. Excellency, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Geneva, good afternoon and good evening, and as well as maybe good night to those from other parts of the world. Welcome and thank you for all joining us today virtually on our executive briefing on the latest updates on the preparation of the upcoming second segment of the fourth meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, or better known as COP-4.2. As we all know, COP-4.2 will take place in Bali. People say this is the island of gods, from March 21st to March 25th, 2022, in an in-person mode. In this regard, I would like to convey my deepest appreciation to Ms. Monica Stankiewicz, the Executive Secretary of the Minamata Secretariat, and her amazing team for your collaboration in making this important and timely event possible. I'm glad as well to see Ambassador Muhsin Shihab on the screen from the Indonesian delegation, accompanied by Mr. Hari Prabowo from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who will brief us a little bit on the draft of Bali Declaration. In this event, officials from Capital will also provide briefing on logistical matters, which will be very important for participants going to Bali. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, under the presidency of Indonesia, the Minamata COP4 is held in two segments. First, the online segment of the fourth meeting of the Conference of the Parties, which was successfully held on the 1st until the 5th of November 2021, or we known as the COP-4.1. The first segment has decided many substantive issues, including on the convention program of work and budget for 2022, and the dates of the resumed fourth meeting of the Conference of the Party as well discussed. The first segment has also considered additional time-sensitive items, namely financial resources and mechanism, and more specifically, global environment facility, national reporting, and effectiveness evaluation. While the second segment, COP-4.2, the segment we are discussing today, is also expected to consider and resume consideration of all items on the agenda of the fourth meeting. COP-4.2 is very important. It will discuss effectiveness evaluation, which is the most urgent agenda of COP4. Article 22 of the Minamata Convention mandates us to evaluate the effectiveness of this convention, beginning no later than 6 years after the date of entry into force of the convention, which is 16 August 2023. Therefore, as the last COP before that date, COP4 should establish an agreed framework for effectiveness evaluation. We really need your support to conclude the arrangement for the convention effectiveness evaluation. Another important agenda of COP 4.2 is also to discuss proposal for amending annexes of the convention. Negotiation on this matter will strengthen rules and scale up commitment to reduce and phase out the use of mercury in the various aspects of our lives. COP 4.2 will also aim to strengthen the convention through the review of financial resources and mechanism, improve capacity building and technology transfer arrangement, and establish technical guidelines on important issues such as artisanal and small-scale gold mining, as well as releases of mercury's wastes. Though the agenda seems to be so tight, I believe all of us, the parties of the convention, can and will overcome any obstacles we encounter during our discussion if we do it together. The pandemic should not stop or weaken our efforts to eliminate mercury. It is our collective obligation to contribute to ensuring health and well-being of our future generation by phasing out mercury. We need to support each other in implementing our convention, and there is still a lot of work to be done in protecting people and the planet from mercury pollution. Finally, let's work together to ensure the success of our COP in Bali. Let's hand in hand make mercury history, as it is our hashtag and our goal, make mercury history. Indonesia looking forward to welcoming you all to Bali. And with that note, I would like to hand over to Alice for the next proceeding. Thank you. Alice, over to you.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for your welcoming remarks. To complete your remarks, it is our pleasure to turn to Monica Stankiewicz, the Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Monica, over to you.
Thank you so much, Diana, also for having us today. Good day, everyone. Dear Ambassador Febrian Rudyard and Ambassador Musim Sihab, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and colleagues. We are currently at the moment of the highest anticipation of the upcoming second segment of the fourth meeting of the Conference of the Parties of the Minamata Convention Mercury. In 2 weeks' time, parties of the convention will meet in Bali to consider and decide on the next steps to fight mercury pollution, which is a matter of the highest importance to people in all corners of the world, and also to the collective efforts to protect biodiversity and conserve nature and to reduce climate change. At the COP, parties will consider proposals to amend the convention, as Ambassador mentioned, with the intention to cover a broader scope and new mercury-added products and manufacturing processes in which mercury is used, and they will do so based on the best available scientific and technical information. COP is further expected to finalize arrangements that will enable future conference of the parties to evaluate how well the convention works. In other words, whether the agreed measures bring the results they are supposed to bring. And parties will also look into the financial mechanism of the convention, including JEF, the trust fund of which is being replenished as we speak, and the secretariat and parties have actively engaged in support of high funding allocation to the Minamata Convention and to chemical and waste focal area. And the financial mechanism considerations will also include the specific international program administered by the Secretariat, which is currently being strengthened to use its full potential and attract additional donor funding to ensure parties receive direct and timely support to the implementation of the ambitious convention. Other matters on the COP agenda are national reporting, mercury waste, and mercury emissions to land and water, a new secretariat initiative on mainstreaming gender, international cooperation, including in anticipation of a post-2020 biodiversity framework, program of work and budget for the next year. I'm extremely pleased to see that majority of the parties can and plan to attend the meeting in person. I understand that several parties may not be able to travel due to the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, and for those parties, arrangements will be made for their active participation through online connection. The COP4 Bureau under the presidency of Ms. Rosa Ratnavadi on 22 February made the final confirmation that the in-person COP-4.2 is supported by online presence can move ahead. Let me underscore the vital role of our host country, Indonesia, who have played to put in realize this plan for in-person COP. Indonesia undertook a major commitment to organize the conference of the parties, and the decision was made in 2019. And Indonesia has been standing by this commitment irrespective or even in times of the pandemic. I would like to express my deepest and highest gratitude to Madam President, to you, Ambassador Rudyard and Ambassador Sehab, and through you to the entire Indonesian team for the massive efforts to make the in-person meeting possible and to put in place all necessary ingredients to make the meeting, our upcoming meeting, a success on all fronts. For the young treaty like Minamata Convention, each conference of the parties shapes the future. And the future we want is where Mercury is no longer excavated from the ground, Mercury-free alternatives are widely available and used, and emissions and releases of Mercury from human activities are effectively addressed. For this to happen, we must see a larger picture and context of our work, in which it is to recognize that not all parties have the same capabilities, resources and possibilities, and in which human being is in the center of it all. So this, I would like to conclude my welcoming remarks to all of you and hand over to Diana to proceed with the rest of the event. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monica. And indeed, we are now proceeding with the agenda of this briefing, and we will now hear from Claudia ten Have and Ezaku Toda of the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention, as well as His Excellency Ambassador Mushin Shihab, that His Excellency has introduced earlier, on the agenda and substantive matters to be addressed at the second segment of the Conference of the Parties. With that, Claudia and Ezaku, over to you.
Thank you very much, Diana. I have 6 slides to introduce to you, very much to contextualize what has already been presented, both in terms of where we are now with the Minamata Convention and where we hope to go through the conclusion of COP4 as soon to be meeting in Bali, of course. But here, this first slide as just a reintroduction, at least perhaps if you are not completely busy with Minamata on a daily basis, is that, of course, and also as Monica Stankovic just outlined, the convention is in place, firstly, to keep Mercury underground, secondly, to reduce the use and presence of Mercury in the economy, industry, and our society, and of course, with the overall aim of reducing any of the Mercury emissions to the environment, with the negative consequences that it may have both for the environment and human health, is the overall objective of the Mercury Convention. And here you can see all of the control measures that the convention text has provided for and that parties have committed themselves for in terms of doing all the necessary steps to indeed work towards the overall objective. On the left-hand side of the slide, you see the control measures, and on the right-hand side are also measures that are equally important to these control measures, as they are enabling the work of parties to do so and also to reflect on the work of the overall convention. They provide the supportive context, and here we go primarily, firstly, of course, the financial resources required and mechanism, but also the capacity building that is required and it needs to be supported, and so on. You can see the rest of the articles here. To some of you, of course, this is very well known, but as this is a more general briefing, we just leave this for your overview of the entire convention's work. and very much in detail, if you go down into our convention, one of the items or one of the features of the Minamata Convention is that it is a very specific convention. It is not a framework convention, it is a convention that sets out specific timelines and deadlines even by which certain actions are to be taken. And here are a snapshot of the timelines and deadlines as they are contained in the convention text and as they are contained in its respective annexes. And there is a lot of text, of course, on the screen, but if I may highlight here that 2020 is a deadline or a timeline for the phase down of certain products to which mercury is added. And also there is, of course, also the deadline by which mercury mines that are still active are to be closed. There are also other items such as reports and plans that parties have committed to put into play at their national level to give meaning and expression to this international commitment that they have done. You can look at much more detail, of course, on this in our documents and our website, but here this just as overall guide in terms of the roadmap that parties have committed themselves to in their national setting, and that the Conference of Parties at the times that it meets, of course, guides parties towards in terms of all of the deadlines as outlined. Just to give a small snapshot of where we are right now. Of course, the convention, while it was agreed and signed in 2013, it came into being through its coming into force on the 16th of August 2017. And soon after we had COP-1, which took place in Geneva, and COP-2 and 3, which also took place in Geneva. At the beginning, it was felt that the COP should meet every year to give this young and new convention all of the attention that it needed right at the beginning. Thereafter, it was decided that the COP would meet every 2 years, and had it not been for the pandemic, of course, our COP would have convened last year in Bali in November, but now we have this modality of an online COP last year and an in-person COP soon in Bali with all of you. And so the timeline is set out as such. You will see that it is presumed that after another 2-year interval that COP-5 would convene, and that's one of the decisions, of course, that COP-4 will make. But just to outline as a snapshot, and this is not an exhaustive overview of all the work that has been done so far, but just to say that COP-1, of course, put in place many guidances and many specific elements for parties to be able to really operationalize the commitment they have made to Minamata. And this means everything from putting in place and utilizing the trade consent forms that have been agreed by COP-1 in terms of the trade of mercury. It also means to put in place and begin to put in place the best practices for emission control of mercury to air. It also put in place in COP-1 the financial mechanism that is, as Monica explained, contained both of the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, but also this very special feature of our convention, the specific international program. And then it also agreed, as every convention does, on a national reporting format and its timing. Other important work was done at COP-2, including the agreement on the interim storage guidelines, and at COP-3, the guidance on contaminated sites, the management thereof, as well as the discussions concluded on 2 waste thresholds. But the work on waste thresholds, for example, is not yet concluded. And so you will see now under the COP-4 area on our timeline, a number of items that have come forward that are now in front of COP-4. So let me just outline that the convention text requires that the annexes A, which is on products, and B, which is on processes that use mercury, are reviewed a certain number of years after the convention comes into force. And that deadline is now. And so one of the key items before the COP is indeed the review of annexes A and B, and there has been substantial intersessional work to support this review which will all be in front of the COP convening soon. Moreover, this year is also the deadline by which parties are putting in place and maintaining inventories of releases of mercury. And so the guidance to guide parties in this way are also now concluded and before the COP to be adopted. And so that is another agenda item before COP4. There has also been intersessional work for quite some time on using customs codes, and that work is up for consideration by the COP. And then also to say that, in fact, at COP1, there was guidance specifically to artisanal small-scale gold mining that was agreed by the COP to use, with the option of also revising it and updating it as other information has come forward. And indeed, this information has come forward and this work has been done together with a Global Mercury Partnership. And now this particular guidance with revisions is before the COP for its conclusion. But let me also outline that besides such topics that come up because of timelines or because work has now been requested to be concluded, there is also ongoing work in front of the COP. And one of them is, of course, always to keep the financial mechanism under review and just to receive the regular reports of the financial mechanism, namely the GEF and also the SIP. And so that financial mechanism item is before the COP. And further, the first reporting has been completed. And the report of that first reporting, the first short reports that have come forward from Minamata parties was for the period until 31st December 2018, and all of these reports came forward 1 year later by December 2019, and this report is also before the COP. May I just stop here and just to say that we in Minamata are incredibly impressed with the strong rate of reporting by our parties and see this as a very healthy indicator of the ownership of our parties to their commitment. We have for the short reports an 89% reporting rate, which is truly phenomenal, and our very sincere thanks to parties for their hard work in doing so. And then let me also just outline, as was outlined already by the ambassador, that effectiveness evaluation, which is this periodic consideration of does the overall convention fulfill its mandate and its objective? Is everything in place? This periodic review, which is mandated to begin no later than 6 years after the entry into force, is due for beginning now at this COP. And so indeed, this is one of the items that is time sensitive and important to be launched at COP-4.2. And lastly, just I mentioned 2 waste thresholds have been agreed on, but the work has not entirely been concluded. And so there's still a third matter for which the COP would need to conclude its consideration. But with that, let me show you just the 2 other slides which concretize this in terms of what is happening at COP-4.2. Namely that we are meeting, of course, from Monday until Friday in the usual UN setting with plenary, but also with smaller groups as needed and as requested by the President, and that our work for those 5 days is supported by regional meetings on the weekend before, as you can see projected here. And just to note that a small number of side events will also be able to be held, or events on the side, in Bali, but as my colleague Esako will brief you in a moment, we have also the innovation of a pre-COP side event week that is online to ensure we could reach as many people as possible in the run-up to COP-4.2. With the next slide, only to highlight how these topics that I spoke about earlier have been planned to be opened at COP-4.2, namely on the Monday, the key topics of the review of Annex A and B, and then also the matter of effectiveness evaluation. Both of these topics are to be opened early so that the COP can give it its full attention. And then on Tuesday are the other very important topics of considering the national reports, the work on the Implementation and Compliance Committee, and thereafter all of the work of the financial mechanism, including the review to decide on the terms of reference for the review of the financial mechanism. And on Tuesday also are these foundational remaining technical matters, namely on customs codes, artisanal small-scale gold mining guidance, the revision, as well as the inventory guidance on releases of mercury, and then the remaining threshold. You will see, of course, that we also always need to have our program of work and budget in place. So this is a constant theme through every COP, and as also for this one. And while the program of work and budget for 2022 was agreed at COP-4.2, it is now before the COP to agree the program of work for 2023. And then not to underestimate the importance of capacity building and other such measures, including international cooperation and coordination, which will also be considered on Thursday of the COP as per the tentative schedule. And my last slide, just to give you an overview of all the steps that we have been taking in between COP 4.1 and COP 4.2. You can peruse this here, but have possibly seen all of this on our website and hopefully been part of many of these steps already. But just also to indicate that as an innovative feature of us having a COP 4.1 and COP 4.2 in one aspect, and that is on one agenda item, namely that of effectiveness evaluation, there has also been intersessional consultation between the two periods. And for that in particular, we would like to invite you to visit our website if you have not been able to follow it, to see the work that is ongoing there on that agenda item. But with that, I would like to hand over to my colleague Esaku to particularly speak to you about this pre-COP 4.2 online side event week and how it also links to the overall work of our convention. Over to you, Esaku.
Thank you, Claudia. So, as Claudia mentioned, we are going to have side events in online format due to the quite limited delegation size to the COP 4.2. So the online side events will be held during the week of the 7th of March, and from the 11 o'clock until 6 o'clock with 5 time slots for each day. There are 26 events. 4 of them are combined, so there are 24 slots, and coordinated by countries, IGOs, and NGOs. So this is a very busy week. One slot is not taken, but it is only for gender events. So we encourage all of you to register. The registration will soon open from our website. The topics covered various trade, products, ASGM, and so on. So there are some examples of the topics covered. For example, the African ECOWAS and SADC region activities by Switzerland, UNITAR, and activities by Indonesia and Japan, and the activities under the specific international program or activities under GEF, especially small grants program, science policy interface convened by UNEP, and the Global Market Partnership will also convene several events, including the customs code. So I think this is my last slide, so I hand it back to Diana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia and Esaku. And to complete this discussion on the agenda and substantive matters to be addressed at this segment of the COP, it's our pleasure to turn to His Excellency Ambassador Mushin Shihab, who is the advisor to the Indonesian Minister for Foreign Affairs on interinstitutional relations. Excellency, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Moderator. At the outset, I wish to recognize the presence of the Indonesian Permanent Representative to the UN in Geneva, His Excellency Ambassador Febrian Rudyard, and the Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention, Madam Monica Stankiewicz, and her wonderful team. Special thanks to the Indonesian Permanent Mission to the UN in Geneva and the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention for their hard work and close collaboration in organizing this virtual briefing on the organization of COP 4.2 of the Minamata Convention. Excellencies, heads of mission, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from Jakarta, good morning in Geneva, and good evening in some other part of the world. In just a few weeks away, the second phase of COP-4 of the Minamata Convention will take place in Bali. Being the president and the host of the COP-4, Indonesia has undertaken special preparation to minimize impacts of the global pandemic situation, especially aimed at protecting the health and safety of attending delegates and the locals in Bali, as well as to ensure a successful and inclusive convening of the COP-4 of the Minamata Convention. For today's session, I will discuss briefly the ongoing initiative to address one of the core issues in global mercury, which is the illegal trade of mercury. The initiative was proposed last year by Indonesia as the president and host of the COP-4. It has undergone 2 out of 3 written consultation stages and scheduled to be concluded at the COP-4.2 in Bali. The initiative is called the Bali Declaration to Combating Illegal Trade of Mercury. It is a non-binding political declaration with 3 objectives, namely in the short term to mainstream the issue and urgency, in the midterm and long-term goals. In the midterm, we aim to forge a strengthened international cooperation and collaboration to combat illegal trade of mercury. And later, in the long run, hopefully, we could establish a universally acceptable global governance of illegal trade of mercury. We believe the COP-4, being the first Minamata COP to be held outside Geneva, will serve as a momentous occasion to launch the Bali Declaration. It will send strong signals to the international community that despite its young age, the Minamata Convention is adaptive and agile in addressing the global challenges of mercury. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, currently the Bali Declaration process is at the 3rd written submission phase. We have received constructive inputs and comments as well as supports from a number of parties, observers, secretariat, and non-governmental organizations. To that end, the Indonesian government extends its high appreciation. On the content of the distributed second consolidated draft text, currently it has 8 preambular paragraphs covering, among others, backgrounds, international reports, relevant conventions, and general principles. It has 12 operating paragraphs ranging from domestic, regional, to international levels, proposing cooperation that calls for effective actions and strategies to curb the illegal trade of mercury. Examples take the form of encouraging economically viable mercury alternatives, capacity building, technical assistance, technology transfer, and health literacy for youth education. The full second consolidated draft text is available at the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention, as well as the official portal of the COP-4.2. We encourage all parties and observers to submit observation or comments before the deadline on March 16, 2022, either by manual submissions or through our online platform. With respect to the final draft, we are planning to distribute it before the COP-4 begins. We are currently preparing a brief ceremonial event to officially launch the declaration that will take place at the COP. We are planning to invite member parties and observers, as well as attending dignitaries and Indonesian high officials in the said event, which will be followed by press conference afterwards. Fixed schedules and invitation will be informed accordingly. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I would like to reiterate the Indonesian government's view on the urgent need for international cooperation to combat the illegal trade of mercury. As an outcome of the COP-4 of Minamata Convention, we do hope that all parties and observers will support the declaration. And upon conclusion during COP-4.2, we look forward to continuing working together on the implementation thereof. With that note, I would like to stop here and give the floor back to the moderator. I thank you very much for your very kind attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And moving on with the agenda, we will hear further on additional information from the host country, Indonesia, on the preparations for this segment of the Conference of the Parties. And so we will hear from Sabid Muhaldar, Elizabeth Sarah Salmon, and Bagus Binantor is also available online to answer your questions. With that, Said and Elizabeth Sarah, over to you.
We will deliver some of information related logistic for the second segment of the fourth meeting of the conference of the parties to Minamata Convention on Mercury. Ladies and gentlemen, the first related visa requirements due to the entry restriction via visa on arrival is temporarily suspended until further notice. The next, diplomatic and service passport holder could refer to agreement between Indonesia government and several countries on short visit visa free for diplomatic and service passport holders. Further information and the list of the agreement on mutual visa exception between the Republic of Indonesia and foreign country can be found of these links. For diplomatic and service passport holders who are not exempted from the agreement, as well as UNELP holders, should contact the embassies or the consulate of the Republic of Indonesia accredited for the station in the respective member countries. For delegates residing in the country where there is no Indonesia mission, the following link will assist you identify the nearest Indonesia mission. Link like this link. Delegates with ordinary passport will have to go through a special mechanism due to the visa insurance restriction by contacting visa@cop4minamata.id. The e-visa fee around $50 and 200 rupiah, around 15 US$ will be borne by each delegate. For further query regarding visa process, delegate might contact clearance.consular@kemlu.go.id. For delegate with diplomats and service passport and the visa at cop4minamata.id for delegate with ordinary passport. For more information on recommend for visa application, please visit the host country website on COP for this link. Related travel arrangement. As of February 22, the government of Indonesia has started to gradually to open directly international flight to Igusti Ngurah Rai Airport, Bali. But if delegate can get access to direct flight Bali, is okay, better. But when delegate are strong, so delegate are strongly recommended to take those flights. So by our information from the airport authority, now maybe the travel to Bali like this Garuda Airways, KLM from Holland, Singapore Airlines, Japan Airlines. So maybe in the short day, some of the flight will register to Bali authority. So, however, if delegate cannot find direct flight to Bali and have to transit through Jakarta, delegate are able to take the regular commercial flight operating from Jakarta to Bali. The COP4 organizing committee strongly suggests a minimum of 5-hour transit time in Soekarno-Hatta Airport to allow sufficient time in processing health control procedure as well as a required document prior departure to Bali. The Indonesia COP4 organizing committee will provide ground team to assist delegate upon arrival both at Igusti Ngurah Rai International Airport and Soekarno-Hatta International Airport in Jakarta. For delegate who will have to transit through the Jakarta, delegate will be directed towards a dedicated lane and waiting room to undergo the health control procedure and the other administrative procedure before moving to their respective official hotel or their scheduled flight to Denpasar, Bali. To ensure the optimal level of service, delegate should provide information on their flight schedule via email to logistic@cop4minamata.id not later than 7 day prior to depart to Indonesia. The RFI support team will also monitor delegate effort through flight schedule. For more logistic information and the update administrative arrangement document, please visit the host country website on COP4 like this link. Next. Foreign traveler preparation and requirement document for entry. The first, please download the Peduli Lindungi application, complete the e-hatch for foreigners, take a RT-PCR test maximum to 20 hours before departure, and fully vaccinated with complete dose at least 14 days before departure, and proof ownership of health insurance with a minimum coverage value 25,000 US dollar, which included financing for handling COVID-19. So, granted short visit visa or other types of entry permits. So, for the required document for entry, the second dose COVID-19 vaccine certificate, at least 15 days period departure and verified by Peduli Lindungi application, and negative PCR test at least maximum to 20 hours before departure, and delegate with certain medical condition who cannot be vaccinated must include a letter explanation issued by official national heads and authority in the country residence. So, proof of the ownership, the health insurance with a minimum coverage value around 25,000, which included financing for handling COVID-19. For accommodation, we are already coordination with local governments. The accommodation we prefer, the first one is Hotel Melia Nusa Bali, address, resort, blah blah blah, phone, and email. So the price around in rupiah 900.000 sampai 5.600.000 or around 65 US dollar until 400 US dollar for Hotel Melia Nusa Bali. The second, Bali Nusa Dua Beach Hotel, the address, phone, and email, and price around 65 US dollar until 165 US dollar. And the third, the Courtyard by Marriott Bali Nusa Hotel, address, phone, email, and price around 65 US dollar or 900.000 rupiah. The Bali Nusa Dua Hotel, the address, phones, and email, price around additional information. The deadline for booking extended until 6 Maret to 2022. So the bubble system in place in early of the quarantine. The summary of the health protocol in the travel bubble system. Pre-arrival, complete vaccination minimum 50 day, negative PCR, verified vaccine certificates, have of the health insurance, download and install Peduli Lindungi. Upon arrival, body temperature check in Jakarta on Bali, baggage claim, custom clearance, and check-in for the following flag will arranged by PCO. If the PCR result of positive, the suspected delegate will immediately be separated from the group to be evacuated using the ambulance provided by the airport port health office and hospital for further examination, and all expenses will be covered by that delegation. During meeting, daily rapid antigen test will be held at very official hotel. A negative test result, which is valid for 20 hours, is required to enter the meeting venue. And then ensure that everyone present at the venue is good health and implemented 3M, physical distancing, wearing a mask, and washing hand and hand sanitizer. And delegation must can peduli lindungi barcode before entering and leaving the venue, and have that departure check before entering the venue, hand washing facility, and so on. And the meeting room will be cleansed and disinfectant daily, immediately before and after use. And the pre-departure requirement for departure test COP, the COP organizing committee will be provide PCR test on the 20 March and 20 March to assist delegate with the necessary health document for departure flight back to home country. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, Said. Elizabeth, is there anything else you would like to add?
Hi, thank you. So thank you for the opportunity. I actually have 4 slides, but if the time permit, I just need to deliver like the first 2 slides of my presentation, please. I just want to ensure the participant that the government of Indonesia has conduct various measures to make Indonesia very hospitable to hold an international meeting. So as you can see in my first slide, that the daily cases in Indonesia, the daily cases, daily deaths, also daily hospitalization for COVID-19 patients now has tend to decrease. We have a relatively low in daily death cases. And next, please. As you can see also from the slide, Bali as one of our main tourist destinations in Indonesia. From the start of the pandemic, the government already tried to do their best to ensure that Bali will be ready to welcome any foreign visitors. Compared to Delta cases, now the daily cases in Bali is already decreasing. So this is a good news for us. We also have a relatively low in death cases, also hospitalization, and also people that the daily cases that are in intensive care. I already provide this slide during the information sessions back in 18th of February. So I just want to inform the delegates that Bali in general, we already have a high vaccination rate, including in Badung district, where the COP-4.2 Minamata Convention will be held. As you can see, our coverage is beyond 100% because we also accommodate people that coming from outside Bali, they reside in Bali to get the vaccination there. A brief description on the health services facilities that the committee will provide during the COP 4.2 meetings. So there are 2 types of health service facilities. So the first one is the in-house clinic or mini ICU, and the other ones are the dedicated referral hospitals. These dedicated referral hospitals already observed and already assessed, and they are more than able to cater the needs of the delegations for general medical issues as well as the COVID-19 related treatment. The hospital located, the first one located really close with the BNDCC Nusa Dua Bali, which is the venue for the COP-4.2 Minamata Convention, and the other one located not too far from the venue, but they have a full fully equipped facilities with international with English speaking personnel, and also with a mix of specialized medical professionals in the hospitals. So maybe that's all that I want to add in my presentation. Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth Sarah, for this complimentary information. We know we are running out of time, but let me also give the floor to Anna Sanz from the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention, who has some additional information on the preparations. Let me also remind you that all the slides that you have seen will be available on the webpage of the event, and the link has been shared in the chat and will be shared again. With that, Anna, over to you.
Thank you very much, Diana. If we can go, thank you with the presentation. So as you can see on the screen, we have 18 days to go, and all the information is posted on the dedicated section of the Minamata Convention website. One important document that I wanted to draw your attention is the information for participants, that document that was prepared jointly with the government of Indonesia, and it provides logistical and other general information about the meeting's arrangements. If we move on, please. Pre-registration opened on the 17th of January for parties and accredited observers. They received a unique link for registration and were requested to submit a delegation letter. Confirmation emails are sent to all accredited participants, and closer to the meeting, the Secretariat will send connection details to access COP-4.2 in-session documents, priority pass, and details for in-person participants, and login details for online attendance. Financial assistance for one participant is also available upon request for developing country parties and parties with economies in transition. As for today, we have received 800 nominated participants. Out of them, 90 parties have confirmed to attend in person in Bali and 10 online. And we have already confirmed 400 delegates to come to Bali. The meeting will be paper smart, and printed documents will not be distributed in the venue. Pre-session documents are available on the meeting's website, and in-session documents such as conference room papers will be uploaded on a safe section within the same site. That means that all COP-4.2 information will be in one place, and the website will operate as the main gateway for participants to access all relevant information. And close to the meeting, the Secretariat will send you an information package with login credentials to access these documents. I would like to provide you some details on how the in-person COP-4.2 is supporting online presence. Parties and observers could register additional delegates for online attendance at both plenary and contact groups, and such online participation will allow viewing the proceedings of the meeting based on the understanding that delegates of parties who are present in Bali would be engaging actively in negotiations for a given party. But recognizing that the COVID-19 pandemic situation is not the same in every country and might continue to evolve, and the same as for any party being affected by COVID-19 situation, the Secretariat has contingency planning and will allow active participation in online mode. All these details will be sent through email for those parties and delegates, and plenary sessions and contact groups and regional meetings will be conducted using Interactio. Plenaries in 6 UN language, and prior to the COP, 2 technical sessions will be offered on 14th March in the morning and in the afternoon to accommodate different time zones. And my last slide is about how to follow online. So access to viewing the meeting proceedings will be provided for registered participants, and going to the main COP-4.2 web section and clicking on the dynamic schedule, participants will see a button called Access the Meeting, next week's session, and from there, participants will be able to follow the meeting's proceedings according to their affiliation to the COP4. Thank you very much, and back to you, Diana.
Thank you very much, Anna. I would like to highlight here that we received some questions on visas and on certificates, COVID certificates to enter Indonesia. As we are running late, we will address them in writing. So we will send them to the colleagues from the Minamata Secretariat and from Indonesia, and we will provide you an answer. Those are very concrete questions, so don't worry, you will get an answer very soon. As it's now, we are already 5 minutes late. Let's close this event, and before I give the floor to the head of the Secretariat for a last word, let me remind you, as it was mentioned a few times, that the summary of this event and the slides will be made available on the website of this event, and the link has been shared various times in the chat. With that, I see that also His Excellency Ambassador Mushin Shihab has put his camera on. Would you like to say a few words before I give the floor to the head of the Secretariat? Please go ahead.
I just would like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciations to all the participants, especially the Secretariat and the whole personnel. I think you've done a wonderful work, and we will continue collaborating each other to make the COP successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, let's hear a last word from the head of the Secretariat. Monika Stankiewicz, over to you.
Thank you so much, Diana, and thank you, Ambassador. I think I would like to finish in the same spirit that we are really excited, looking forward to the meeting, and I'm especially excited that I will have for the first time in my position as Executive Secretary meet many of my parties and the delegates with whom I have been collaborating online. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person this time. So this is also for me a situation to which I'm really looking forward to. And with that, I would just like to conclude and say that see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much, Monika. Indeed, see you in 2 weeks' time. And also, you heard next week you have the side events, so we also hope to see you all at the side events starting next week. With that, we would like to thank all the panelists, those that were with us from Geneva, those that were with us from Jakarta. And we would also like to thank you all the attendees who joined this briefing. Remind you that, as mentioned, all the information and the slides will be ready very soon on the webpage of this event. So thank you all, and see you soon online next week for the side events or in Jakarta.